All right, we are live. So I wanted to discuss something I'm seeing on social media. I see a lot of it actually on X, where I am broadcasting this right now. I am broadcasting this on X. And so, I wanted to address it, and I can only address it in the way that I have a background and therefore the ability to describe it. Because I can't tell you I have a microscope in a lab or a dark, um, what's it called? A microscopy. What's it called? The live blood analysis. There we go. I don't have that stuff. That's not how I look at this. But what I'm seeing going on right now, to get straight to the point, I'm seeing people do what people do, which is to absolutely be such polarity sitters. It's either this or it's either that. Yeah, I don't know what it is about teams and human beings, but we always seem to have a team. Are you COVID was real, meaning something was released, or if you're really in the dark, something just happened out of nature and just sprung out of somewhere and just took over the planet. We don't know how it happened. It was it that, or was it totally all drummed up and fake? Like nothing about it was real at all. Is that what happened? And there's nothing in between. There's not a well. Look, here's the deal. Something was released, and it was not so great for some people, and then other people not an issue at all, and then some who had sort of an issue with it, but it wasn't that big deal. It's like a cold. There's a gradient. There's a gradient, people. There's a gradient on most things. Most things are not so easily cut and dried. That's not what's happening with most dynamics. There's a range. But what I'm seeing right now is, look, there is no long haul COVID, folks. This is the those, them, the thems. Their pronouns are them. They are the ones who are creating this idea of long haul COVID. But what it really is for everybody is the people who've had the countermeasure are having side effects. That's what long haul COVID is. No such thing, because nothing was ever released. And you know why that is, Keith? Because there's no such thing as viruses. That's right. The viral model is absolutely non existent. Therefore, nobody ever gets sick. It's simply just your body hitting an overloaded state of toxicity and then having to purge itself of its toxins. And that's where the illness and symptoms come from. That sounds nice, but that's not what I'm feeling in clients. And to give you a bit of a background, my background is Chinese medicine. I graduated from the Academy for 5-Element Acupuncture in 2004 in Florida, and I've been in practice ever since. In the last 7-ish plus years, I now treat only from a distance. I only do remote medical Qigong treatments, and I also teach that online. That's what I do. So my experience is feeling the state of organ systems of my clients. Used to be in person. Robin's here, Robin Fulcher. Robin, I've seen Robin in person. And I used to treat them in person. I used to needle. And I also was doing my diagnostics, though, with how I do it, where I put my point of consciousness into the client, and I start rummaging around and feeling how things are doing. Robin can vouch for that. I didn't use pulse check much or at all. I didn't use the typical diagnostics of taking the radial pulse and 3 different positions on both wrists, and there's a shallow and a deep taking of information. I didn't do that much. Probably not even when Robin saw me. I think I may have been through with that by then. So you gather information, right? You're gathering, what does it feel like? Because I encourage this for my clients. What does it feel like when a client is sick with a cold? I've got a cold. I've got some type of viral infection. Sorry, I offended people who don't believe in the viral model. But I have a cold, and I always like, come on in. I'll do a gua sha treatment. I don't have a gua sha tool here, but what gua sha treatment is, you take this a jade stone or something that resembles jade, or maybe the horn of an animal. It's smooth, it's hard, and you're putting a layer of oil or something on the back, and then you're scraping the back along these meridians, these bladder meridians and these Huatwo Jiaji meridians, and you're scraping the whole back to what's basically release the exterior to allow the illness, the invasion, the invader to come out. And it works beautifully. You can take somebody who's really, really sick, and it would have been effective in that the last 4 years if people knew how to do it and would listen to me. But you would take somebody who's really, really ill, pneumonia, whatever, and they would come in, you'd scrape them, and then you'd send them home, and they would feel better walking out of the door. Often their fever would break either there in the room or after they left, not long after their fever would break. And I didn't care. I'm like, come on in. I do qigong every day. I'll be fine. And that's how I did it. So when you've dealt with people like that and the same clients you've had for years that come in every so often for things, you have an idea of how they feel. And what does a viral infection, what does an infection in general feel like? What does a cold feel like? What organ systems is it affecting? And then after it's over and they feel back to normal again, what do you notice as residual? Because what you realize is when someone becomes really very, very sick, or they have the same type of illness, like I had scarlet fever 3 or so times growing up as a kid, and then once in my early adult years. And that's an illness that'll put some impact. And so what it seems to do when you have either a very, very serious illness and or you have a same type of illness multiple times, it starts creating an imprint, right? It creates an imprint in the body, in certain organ systems. It's leaving a receptor site almost that allows the person to then become ill more easily when it involves those organ systems that we're talking about. So for instance, if you had, let's say you had pneumonia as a child a couple of times, you had a pneumonia a couple of times as an adult, you might then say, my lungs seem to be a little susceptible to infection. They're weakened. There's an imprint. There's a terrain that's been impressed into my organ systems. So when that happens, a person then has susceptibility. If you're one of those people like, well, every fall I seem to get sick, some type of respiratory thing, that's showing you there's an imprint in there. And the time of the year does matter. The Chinese clock, whether it's 24 hours or the seasonal Chinese clock, all of that matters, but we're not going into that tonight because that's not the focus of this broadcast. I'm trying to get a point across. When we talked about comorbidities, that first couple of years, 2021 and 2022, when we had that comorbidity talk, what you're talking about is, does this person have an imprint of some kind, usually from a past illness or even an injury? Maybe you're in an accident, have a punctured lung. So, something's creating a weakness there, which makes you more susceptible. Excuse me, I'm going to turn this heater off. It's going to be driving me nuts. And that is a comorbidity. Here's the deal. What people didn't call comorbidities, well, I'm fine. I've never had any lung problems. I've never had infections. I'm rarely ever sick. Cool. Have you ever lost anybody or a job or have you ever had a loss, a major loss? Well, of course. Okay, well, tell me about that. What was that like? How many of them did you have? How many of those would you say were deep, deep loss? You think that doesn't even imprint? Cindy, I want to address Cindy. Cindy, I emailed you about connecting, and I think I gave you my phone number. So please give me a call or email me back. I was waiting back from you. Maybe you did, and I lost the connection. So let me go back and look at my email. But I've tried to reach you. Just didn't want to let that go because I saw your name there. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about people having an imprint, a weakness, a comorbidity that isn't always so obvious, and the regular world doesn't understand that sadness, that the emergence of an illness that shouldn't have been is often because there is an imprint area that's made you weak. Okay, so with that being said, when you are dealing with people who've had all kinds of infections over a career, the same people, and then they end up getting what was supposedly going around. I'm trying to be careful. I can say these things on X, but I'm also sending this out, broadcasting on YouTube and on Facebook. Got to be careful on how I say things. But when people then are getting something that's going around, and it's going around not just in the wintertime when it's typical fall and winter, but spring and summer, And then these are people, some of them you've treated for years, you know how they feel, you know what their organ systems feel like. And then they get sick with something that you help them get over, or they get a hold of you after the fact and say, here's the deal. I was sick for about a freaking month, Keith, which was really weird for me. You know me. I don't get sick for a month, but I was sick for a month. I think I'm mostly over it, but there's this last part I just can't seem to shake. I feel lethargy. I feel foggy in the head. I'm having weird pain, having digestive stuff I don't normally have. What's going on with me? Can you help me get back to where I was? And I do a deep dive and go, well, I'm going to take an inventory of organ systems like I always do. And I notice that they're 4 or 5 weeks out from when they experience a sickness. And I feel, now follow me here, I feel things I've never felt before in this person, ever. Maybe I've been treating them for 15 years or used to a long time ago in Nashville. I don't live there anymore. And they get a hold of me and go, look, I'm willing to do a long distance treatment because I'm not getting better and I can't seem to get help here in Nashville. I'm willing to give this long distance thing a shot. What do you notice? And what I'm noticing, here we go. You still have this strange energetic point of attachment or occlusion in the right hemisphere of the back part of the head, the occipital area. And this is a pattern I noticed in a lot of these people I've been treating, especially those first 2 years, that this weird attachment pattern, energetically like a hook, in the right hemisphere, the right side of that occipital area, okay? And then I noticed that there's the same type of hook, occlusion, blockage energetically in the lungs, in the spleen, in the gallbladder, maybe, in the liver for sure, in the kidneys, in the adrenals, in maybe the reproductive organs. What the freak is this? This is not the typical profile of people I've treated all these years before. Why do I have so many people with this pattern? Now I'm going back to when people were really sick and all the scare was going on. Folks, that did not feel like anything I had felt before. So do you see why I don't give a shit about what people out there, and it's hippocampus and then some, what people out there, all the experts who are telling us what is and isn't, I don't care what you say. You're a bunch of freaking muggles. How are you making your assessments? I'm in the person scouting out what things feel like. How are you doing it? Guessing? Educated guessing? Yeah, I don't take them seriously. I know what I experience. I don't know how you're getting your information. So when I have people now who are getting sick still, again, with this weird deep illness for the 4th or 5th time, and they aren't with the countermeasure, they're clear of that. They're clean of it. They've never had it. And I say, well, that attachment there in that whole right area is still there. And it's anchoring the illness in a number of organ systems. How long ago were you sick again? 4 or 5 weeks. Do you know how often that happened for me prior to 2021, early 2021? You know how often I found that level of screwed up occlusions going on down the central nervous system to organs before 2021 till now? Hardly ever. Cancer, something extremely serious. So if you can explain to me, and I don't want to hear it's EMF. I don't want to hear it's all the freaking 5G towers, because I had people I was treating who lived truly in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. And if you know anything about 5G, those high frequency emitters, one, have to be placed close together in the cities where it's flatter, and they don't work up in the mountains. And there's not enough of us to have a phone companies put the investment into putting into some type of lower frequency 5G here, because who are you doing it for? And I had treated people who lived in the middle of no place like we do. It's not a 5G problem where these people are living where we're living, yet they were having it. Whole households. sometimes. So all the explanations of, well, it's this or it's that or it's this, I'm like, look, I'm not saying it's not a combination of things. It probably could have been that. I'm not even claiming viral model because I don't know. I just know what I experience. And so for everybody out there who needs to have it be one way or the other, you got to get off of that train. You got to be more complex in your thinking than that very simplified thinking of, well, it either was a thing or it wasn't a thing. How about it was a thing, wasn't deadly for most people? We know that. But some people had impact points from previous things in their life at beyond, not just older people, but younger people too, younger adults as well, who had these massive imprints made again, but even more deeply by this thing that wasn't fatal for most, but has left a very lasting impression on a lot of people, and they aren't shaking it. If you take a thing, I got to be careful. You take this thing that affects puppies and piglets, and it affects their digestive systems, and you take this thing into a laboratory, and you start messing with it to where it then will affect humans and affect cardiovascular and pulmonary. I get that right? I did, didn't I? Yeah. Tissue and other things too, I suspect. But when you make that kind of a switch, and for what? Well, here's your question: why would you do that? Why would you do that? Yeah, page me too. It was October, November is when I started noticing it. Why would you do that? What purpose does that serve to take something that affects animals and deliberately do things to it to affect human beings? Now, in Chinese medicine, the lungs and the large intestine are siblings energetically. Did you know that? This is also why you sometimes have a household become ill, and some of them are having respiratory problems and snot. And another outlier in the family goes, I got none of that, but I'm crapping my brains out. Hang on, back to the bathroom again. My butt's getting raw. And you're like, well, what's going on over there? Why are you having this? If you're all sick, why are you doing something different? Because energetically, in my world, they're not that different. Paige says affecting too many organs. Yeah, absolutely. But this weird little thing, right, that people were having, of this, I don't understand why it's affecting digestive. Well, one, where do you think it came from? Now, again, I'm not claiming viral model the way it's presented as being accurate. I'm just telling you there's patent record, according to Dr. David Martin in his research, that shows where they did this. This isn't up for debate, and you don't file patents for no reason. You do it for a reason. It costs money, and it takes time. You file patents for a reason. And then when you have evidence that it was done in a laboratory, what else are you supposed to do? Well, I don't believe in the viral model, Keith, so therefore it didn't happen. Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks for your input. So, folks, when I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be neat and tidy, so you can make it, fit in your brains. This is for my X people out there, not my Facebook folks. But for you X folks who are just so insistent that it's all made up and the only lingering problems right now are the people who have the countermeasure, I want you to understand you don't know what you're talking about. You're speaking out of your ass. You just are. You're armchair quarterbacks, just looking at stuff and reading things and watching videos and then making some type of assessment, and you're wrong. Is the countermeasure causing untold problems? Oh my gosh, is it ever? It's the worst thing unleashed on humanity in my lifetime, for sure. It is. I'm not taking that away from you. However, I'm asking that you please entertain this idea that also people who have not had the countermeasure, like Elizabeth here. Elizabeth's got, I'm going to put this up on the page here. Look what Elizabeth said. Dude, we've been so sick. I'm not countermeasured, and hubby got one and he's sicker than me. Okay. Here's Cindy. No countermeasure here, and I was hospitalized for 2 weeks. And if I feel Cindy right now, we are gonna have that conversation. Cindy still has this lingering hook in the right side of her head. Just the only thing I checked on. Boop, there it is. That shouldn't be there. That shouldn't be there. It's a thing, guys. I'm in the trenches and have been working on it. So for all you on X who make your ridiculous statements out of ignorance, shut up. Shut up. You are fools for making the statements you are, and you're belittling the people right here who are listening, who's been sick. You're telling them that what they've experienced isn't real. It's all in their heads, or it's just a lingering cold symptom. You're being foolish saying this to them. So just shut up. You're out of your league. I don't talk about math because I'm a horrible mathematician. I know when I'm out over my head. I'll be lucky to teach my son past 4th grade homeschooling him from math. Angel will have to do that. Okay? Know when you're over your head. You don't know what you're talking about. These people are suffering. There are imprints. And here's another piece of information I've noticed so far. Again, just me noticing. People who have been severely affected by the released item that I've been talking about here, who have long haul COVID, they also seem to be more susceptible to the people who have had the countermeasure and what they're radiating. Notice I chose radiating. They seem to, when they're in proximity to those people who have had the countermeasure and they have this pattern I'm describing from being so sick, they seem to be more likely to absorb the nasty from those people who have had the countermeasure. Maybe not every single one, but a lot of them. Which is why some people I think are more affected by being around those who've had the countermeasure, who are clean, and those other people who don't suffer or don't do well. This is one reason why I think this is happening. So what do we do about it? I hate when people go out there and release all the diagnostics and then don't give a solution. You must be able to remove the hooks, and you can also learn how to cultivate your own life force to where you're not affected by, one, the countermeasure radiation, if you will, what's being transmitted, and also having those imprints make you such a susceptible person who can't do their life. You can strengthen yourself. Very simple exercise. Our son does it. He was having problems when we moved from Washington State, China 2.0, in 2021 early, out to the Carolinas. We got here, I thought, oh, it's going to be cool. These people won't be crazy here like they were out there. They have sense, right? Wrong. Not really. Not when it came to the countermeasure. And not one. Rachel's here. Rachel asked, did you wear a mask? I never, ever, ever held a mask in my hand, let alone put one on my face. Ever. That was a question for me. I want to make that clear. Never did. So when we're talking about what you do, you're going to have to get these things out of you, these hooks, and raise your energy. When we moved here, that's where I was going. When we got here, we ended up going out and buying groceries, go to a restaurant that would let us go in without a mask. There's very few of them, but a few did. And when he would get in public, and he was right before he was 5, he would come home and have abdominal cramping and then would sit in the toilet and have diarrhea. I think he even threw up once or twice from being near the transmission. Okay? So I said, Bub, we work on you every day. We try to strengthen you, but there's nothing like doing this life force immune building. That'll communicate better, I think. This immune building exercise, nothing works better than you doing it for yourself. So what he did was at 5 agree to start doing it. And he has since he was 5. And those symptoms of being around those that were transmitting the countermeasure product, they ended up, those symptoms went away from him. They went away because his Wei Qi, his guardian Qi, became stronger. And when he got around it, it didn't penetrate. He could ward it off. That's what that Wei Qi level's for. That's why when you see a lot of you go, well, Keith, you understand, I'm really a spiritual person. I'm really all about energy and crystals and so on. And I meditate. And I'm like, yep, that's all cool. I'm glad you have that awareness. But if I feel your field, your energy, and it's small, Whatever you're doing, you're not putting in this piece of it. There's a lot of you out there who fall under the category and description of what I just said. You do a lot of what you think are the right things, and they probably are good for you, but they're not handling you becoming beefy. And it takes a daily practice. Who our 7-year-old is pulling that off every day. He collectively does 3 of those a day, which is an hour's worth of this special exercise that's made him strong. Because he is one of those very sensitive people. Okay? So you can move past this. Long haul COVID is real. I don't care who tells me. You can have the greatest researchers in the world stand in front of you. Go, Keith Coley, we have our white lab coats on and our stethoscopes, and we have our degrees, and we're here to tell you that it doesn't exist. And I'd say, all of you are bought and paid for fools, or you're actually just fools. Because I don't need somebody to verify what I experience on a daily basis. You're the ones who are muggles, not me. How do you not feel this? That's my question for you, doctors. How do you not feel what I'm feeling? How do you not experience what I'm experiencing? You're the ones who are lost and wandering in the dark, not me. You are. Why don't you go back to what the early doctors did, which is to learn how to actually use your intuition in part of the diagnostics. Sure, you can take pulses. Sure, you can look at coloring. Sure, you can look at the tongue and all those things that are very tangible. But you also can learn how to use your intuition to interact with your field and their field to pick up on information. Go, you know what? Something's going on over here. Something's not right. How do you know? Because I can feel that the liver's off. What do you mean you can feel that? What, you have emotions around it? Well, I can feel they're pissed. There's an emotion in the liver. That person's pissed off, probably for a few reasons, but I can feel that it's stuck. It's stagnant. Energy isn't moving. It's not doing its job. How do you not feel that? That sounds crazy. You're the one who's crazy. You're the one who's left your natural position in nature to be able to interact in this way. You think our ancestors didn't probably do what I'm talking about? You think that somehow me and a few other people in this world, quite a few, can just do this out of nowhere? No, we're capturing what we've lost. We're capturing what humans had to do to survive before technology made us stupid because we rely on it for everything. We rely on technology for everything. So, folks, long haul COVID is real. People are suffering and they're not sure what to do about it, and the doctors are brushing them off like they're stupid and crazy. Here's some more anti-anxiety medication. Here's an antidepressant. That's your problem. That'll solve it. Or now it's, no, hang on, people don't have long haul COVID. They just have Epstein-Barr. Well, we're going to dump all that on that one now too. I'm not saying Epstein-Barr isn't a thing, but everything ended up being dumped on top of that one after it was recognized as being a thing. That's not what everybody's having. Okay? So that's all I came on here to talk about, was that it's real. This is why I believe it's real. Stella wrote me a lot up here. I just kind of want to see Stella. What did Stella say here? I'll let you all read it too. Stella says, I had all the symptoms of long COVID 30 years before it existed. It's just like my autoimmune. Show Lena symptoms that are different. It's an illusion to rename something with not novel symptoms, but it's not. It's not the same. And I just described to you why this isn't the same. I've dealt with so many people with autoimmune issues for 20 years. This is not that. There are so many environmental and all stress that contribute. That's true. Pharmaceutical history? Yes. Drinking public water? Sure. Your diet? I agree with all those. But the pattern I just described, Stella, that's not been there. That particular arrangement has not been. I've treated Epstein-Barr clients. I've treated all kinds of autoimmune issues, people with those type of descriptions. And again, you know what? Those things aren't even things. They're just names. All this stuff are just names. I agree with anybody who says, well, this is all just labeling. Maybe it is. I'm talking about the pattern itself and what I feel. So I've never had any sickness the whole time, including a flu. Hugged people that were, and no mask, did not drink public water. I fast, detox, eat for mitochondria. It's not long COVID. Well, maybe for you, it's not. Okay? So I'm just letting you know. And if somebody's had the countermeasure, that's not what I'm talking about. Folks, if I haven't been clear, the attachment pattern. So Stella, I'll talk about it again. Maybe you came in after I described it. This attachment pattern in the rear part of the right side of the brain, sometimes it was the left, but usually the right-hand side, and the depth of impact in the lungs, in the spleen especially, sometimes the stomach, but usually it's the spleen for sure, in the liver, sometimes the gallbladder, often the kidneys are just blown out and never come back, and even reproductive organs. That is not a pattern I have ever seen with this many people. It's not one or two. It's not one or two. Okay, this is a lot of people. Even people I wasn't treating, I would see people online and social media go, I'm having these symptoms. What's wrong with me? And I would feel them, right? Because I don't need to see you. I just need to see you say something, and I can feel you through that. This pattern is novel in my lifetime. My last 20 years. I can only speak to what I've got. 20 years of experience. That's all. You went back 30, whatever. I'm not saying everybody who got sick in the last 3 or 4 years has long haul COVID. I'm telling you, though, there are people who've been my clients for a long time, okay? A long time. And they've never had anything like this. I've known them, some of them for almost 20 years. Some of them 20 years. And they got sick in a way they've never been sick before. And it lingered and lingered and lingered with the same pattern I just described. And if I don't get rid of this out of their heads, they don't usually get better. It's like it's an anchoring point that everything else hinges on. Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, Paige is like basically it's all what's held in cellular memory not dealt with. Yes, I mean, absolutely. But I'm trying to give some tangible things here of the nervous system and where it's attaching along the central nervous system, because most people will recognize that's a real thing. If I start talking about meridians, it's over. It's over. I'm a kook, right? So Paige goes, spleen, liver, ovaries, testes, lungs. Yes, absolutely. And this thing right there for almost everybody. All right. So you guys can tell me I'm wrong. I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, whatever. I get played out on X all the time. I know what I know. Unless you're doing what I'm doing and you're just speculating, then you're speculating. If you've got experience, like, no, Keith, I've been treating the last 4 years all these people too, and I didn't find any of that. I don't know what to tell you. And if you had results and they got better and you worked on them, maybe we have two different paradigms. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe so. But I'm not gonna sit there and tell you that what I've experienced for 4 years now isn't a thing. Otherwise, I would have been the first to tell people, hey guys, chill out. And I did say, chill out. This is not that big of a deal if you'll do certain things and take care of yourself. I said that. It doesn't have to be that big of a deal. But I knew a lot of people who were doing all the right things and had been doing a lot of the right things, but they had a few of these weaknesses in there, these imprints and those comorbidities, and it hit them hard. We're talking some of them 2 months, 3 months, and I'm still not right. And they'd never had that before. This isn't their history. You have to pay attention when the client says, here's my history, and I've never felt this way before. You don't go, oh, you have to. You know what you're talking about. And if I've treated them for a long time, I know they haven't, I'm not surely going to tell them they're wrong on how they feel. That's what doctors do. Doctors dismiss how you feel. Oh, it's not that. It's something else. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're feeling. You've had things like this before. That's dismissing a person's experience. I'm not going to do that. So the lymph and the brainstem. Well, cerebral spinal fluid, I mean, maybe. It's running the whole gamut. It just depends on the person, on how long it lingers in certain organ systems. That's the way I see it. I could be wrong on why and how, but I'm telling you, the pattern I'm talking about is a real thing. I've never felt it before, and I know a lot of these people for longer than just this, recent time, and they've never been sick in this way. I'm just telling you, okay? This is my experience. I'm going to be dismissed by a lot of people, whatever. I'll never work with you because you won't darken my door. That's fine. But what I'm telling you is that that's my experience of it, okay? Something was released. It had an effect. It wasn't deadly for most people, but for some people, it is lingering. That's not even getting into the countermeasure. It's a whole different world of problems. That one just makes me really ill, because unless they do certain mitigation techniques, some of those people aren't going to be around. And the ones that do linger on longer than you'd think they'd be able to do it are suffering until they go. It's a whole different broadcast. Anyway, 8:34. I've got to get ready for a huge group treatment coming up here at 9 o'clock my time, about 30 minutes, 25 minutes, and I need to do some Qigong to prepare for that. So thank you all for entertaining me on what I had to say. And if it's useful, great. If not, that's okay too. So, and I'm not saying that I know what they did or what everything is. I just know what is affecting people. Okay. Um, yeah. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you soon.